Your name and who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, so Evan Roberts, I'm the associate AD for NIL and digital. So here at Miami, I oversee our creative video team, two full-time social media people as well, and then I oversee our NIL department. So it's kind of expanding just as NIL is. We'll help our student athletes grow their brand and help them get some NIL deals.
Cool. And then where you grew up, where you're from, and then kind of how you got into the space and industry.
Yeah, so I grew up, I was born in Lafayette, Indiana. I was the only one in my family not to go to Purdue. So I grew up a Purdue fan, going to all the football games and everything. Moved to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where I did high school. And then actually middle of high school, it's when I moved to Auburn, Alabama. After high school, I went to school at Auburn, where I graduated in 2014. But when I started as a freshman at Auburn, my brother had worked in the sports information department when he went to Purdue and kind of piqued my interest. I knew I always wanted to work in sports. So when I started at Auburn, I reached out to Kirk Sampson and asked him if he needed any help, was willing to do anything, just kind of get my foot in the door. Met with them that next Monday and started there. My first job was stuffing the media guides into envelopes so we could mail it out to media members. But really my role kind of evolved from there. Was able to take over some sport responsibilities my second year doing men's and women's tennis. And it just grew. After I graduated, they hired me on as the intern. So where I oversaw equestrian, cross country, gymnastics, track and field, and then was a secondary men's basketball contact. Did that for a year and a half before I was hired at Texas A&M in 2016. Where I was the softball and equestrian SID. And then in 2019, I was fortunate enough to work with the men's basketball team for 3 years before I got the opportunity to be the associate AD for communications and digital strategy at Louisiana, where I spent 2 years there before coming here in July.
Yep. And then if you can, just like each spot, how does one, in this space get in touch with those jobs? I know people have different methods, so kind of just each spot how'd you end up at that?
Yeah, so honestly, when I first was a student and reaching out, I just clicked on Kirk's name because he was at the top of the staff directory. But I think it's all just making that first step to get your foot in the door. And then, just kind of my work ethic, I think, and proving myself led me to more opportunities. The opportunity at Texas A&M came about because, I had the equestrian experience. I never had softball as a primary sport in the communications background, but having that, the work ethic and having people talk about me, and it's all about the connections, that you make. You don't know if your boss knows person A or person B, but luckily a couple of people, it's in the same conference. So all the SIDs kind of knew each other just from traveling around and working the different games. So kind of word of mouth was kind of how I was able to kind of get my foot in the door at Texas A&M. And then the same thing at Louisiana. I remember Dr. Maggard, very well known in the industry, reached out to Ross Bjork, who was the AD at the time at Texas A&M, and asked him about me. He got my name from a student worker that I worked with at Auburn that had a similar role to me at Louisiana. So you just never know where your paths are going to lead. And I always say, it's always good to network because you never know who's going to be able to help you out. But just with those two connections with Dr. Maggard and Ross, it was, he just reached out and said, "Hey, what do you think of him?" And Ross was like, "Yeah, I think you should hire him." I was able to get hired, but I think, a lot of it is getting your foot in the door. Who gets you in the door, and then what keeps you in that door. And I think that's just the biggest thing, is just the networking, and you just never know who's going to end up where, or if it's the next year, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. But our industry is so well connected; it's not hard to find somebody that's knows this person who knows this person. You're kind of 2 degrees of separation away from knowing anybody in our industry, I think.
Yeah, I agree. If you want, just dive in on the pros and cons of each, position that you've been in, and how'd you kind of handle those struggles or adversities?
Yeah, I think like with my first with the communications, that's, my primary background before I got into the digital and now NIL. I just think the biggest cons would probably be the time and your time management. And I think it's any job in athletics, right? Like we're all working long hours. You don't really get holidays off. You kind of think of Thanksgiving, but you have your biggest games are usually Thanksgiving weekend, and if they're at home, you can't really go home and see family. So I think time management is probably the biggest con, I would say, or thing that you really need to learn, because you do miss a lot of weddings or different things that go on with it. You're always going to find some coaches that may be more difficult to deal with than others. But I think that's true for any industry. You're not going to be best friends with everybody, and not that they're bad people or anything, but they just have a way of working, and every coach is different with how they want to represent their program. So kind of navigating those waters can sometimes be difficult. The pros, I think, with every spot has always been the people that you get to meet, whether it's your coworkers or the student athletes, anybody that works in athletics. Student athletes are always our number one priority. Just we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. But I think the biggest joy I always got out of my roles in athletics is being able to play a very small role in their success and being able to tell their story and kind of getting them out there. And, there's different walks of life and people come from different places. And it's kind of cool to see how people have come seeing success. And it's not always just this easy path for people to come through. But if you're able to tell that story and things that they've overcome or just different things that they've been able to do has always been the pro.
Yeah. When NIL first came out, I think it was like, what was that, 21?
2021.
21, yeah. What was your first impression on it? And then how has your stance from then to now kind of changed?
Yeah, I think it was always, we kind of saw the writing on the wall, especially with the Ed O'Bannon case coming. And then you kind of slowly started seeing some of it come to fruition, not obviously as we see it now, but like with the cost of attendance and the Alston money, and kind of getting that aspect of it. I think it's great for the student athletes out to see. I don't understand why people would hate it. I think, if you're able to go profit off your name, image, likeness, I think that's a great thing. I think it's looking back at it, like if you go watch like the Johnny Manziel documentary, like they weren't able to capitalize, like he wasn't able to capitalize on any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just funny to see, even just in the 3 years now that we've had it, it's kind of taboo to think that like players weren't able to earn money or sell jerseys or do different deals with companies, and any other student on campus would have been able to do it, but because they were a student athlete they weren't able to. I think the enticement is where we kind of see is where the line kind of gets drawn in the sand, and I think that's what we really need to figure out. But I've always thought it's a great thing, and I think it's going to be even better. But I'm interested to see kind of where everything goes, especially once this house settlement comes into play.
Yeah. What with NIL, what are you touched on some of the great things that had happened. What are some of the negatives that you were seeing that you're kind of concerned for the student athletes to be worried about or just concerned about?
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing is they just got to be educated on a lot of different things, like the financial literacy of stuff. Just making sure that they're not getting taken advantage of by companies, really reading through the contracts when they do sign stuff. When it comes to tax season, make sure you get all that figured out and squared away. But I think more as this, continues to evolve more and more, that will continue to dissipate, I believe, a little bit. And, I think we're seeing more schools invest in the NIL space and kind of, they are doing the financial literacy pieces. They're doing different things to kind of help them out. Like we have programs where you can disclose your NIL activity, and they do the tax forms and stuff for you. So I think there's different things that are there that able to help them. But I just think the biggest thing is to be educated. Everything sounds great when, a company reaches out and they want you to do a couple social media posts and you get paid X amount of money, but you just got to really make sure you're looking through it and you're not, for lack of a better term, signing your life away when you sign one of those contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see college football in 5 to 10 years? I know that's because a big part of it is NIL, and there's so much money that just goes into football.
Yeah.
Do you see do you see them staying? Do you see them branching off and making their own? And how does that affect also other sports? And
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. I saw somebody, they're quoted as saying, all sports are equal, but football gets fed first because it feeds the other sports. I think it's interesting to see where it's going to go. Honestly, I kind of think that I envision it, and I could be way off, but I think that we'll probably just see one mega conference of about 60 teams, Power Four, but I wouldn't swear to that. But you'd probably see just like a mega conference, and we kind of figure out the teams from there. It kind of be like a NFL on steroids type. I think that's probably the way it's going to go, and it'll probably be loosely modeled based, maybe a player association or something along those lines, just to kind of keep things more regulated.
H. Bolbolin is a regionally concentrated, customer-focused, energy-related services organization in Northwest Louisiana. Our success is based on our ability to move fast, add value through quality, service, innovation, and our capacity to customize solutions to meet our customers' specific problems. H. Bolbolin is committed to conducting business ethically and believe good governance protects and enhances long-term value. We are transforming clean energy resources along with digital and automated technology.
so obviously, legislation is going to have to step up at some part. You just kind of educate the viewers on like everything that needs to be handled, in your opinion.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it is going to come from, I think the biggest question a lot of schools are going to have is the Title IX piece of it and how that's going to affect the payment once that settlement comes through. I think that's going to be the biggest thing that needs to be sorted out. And until then, we really don't have a lot of answers, but it's really interesting to see where the legislation is going to go. But I don't think without it being finalized, there's 100 different avenues that you can go down. But when I've talked to people, the biggest concern is how Title IX is going to play the biggest effect into that.
What are the best things that Miami's doing with their NIL, and then what are some things that you want to see ramped up?
Yeah, so I think one of the best things we do is we educate all of our student athletes on the different things that we offer as a university. So, that's with influencers, setting up the marketplace, our partnership with One Team and Fanatics to get their jersey merch on sale. But then the biggest thing is just having somebody in-house where they can come ask questions too. We're working on some brand building activations, I guess you could say, to help them build their social media profiles. So they could get some more, social media influencer. I think that's probably the easiest way for a lot of these student athletes to make money because anybody can really be successful in that space. It doesn't matter your star power, what sport you play. If you're all conference or walk on anywhere in between, you're able to take advantage of that, build your own brand. I think we do a good job of that. We're in a really good place where there's a lot of businesses, a lot of influencers, and a lot of eyes on the youth. So I think that's a good thing. I just think we just got to keep improving. As I mentioned before, like the landscape's ever changing. We have to stay at the forefront of that. I think we've done a good job prior to when I got here of kind of being at the forefront of NIL, and we just need to make sure that when the landscape does change, we're changing with it. We don't get caught left behind.
Do you think in 3 to 5 years that the money that's coming in is going to be able to keep up with it in the space?
I think for some, there might be some guys like the transcendent stars that will be able to make even more money off of it. I think, with the settlement, there'll be, some cap raises, but I think it's just like, we see with the pro sports too. I think that's going to be the closest model that we have is you see the cap being raised every so often by the NFL or the NHL or whatever. So I think for now, it'll probably be sufficient, but I think, 10 years down the line, we'll probably have to keep incrementally. And that's going to be the hard part, right? Like you have to, if you're a department, you have to find, if you're going to spend the money, it's the $22.5 million in an expense that you didn't have on the line item before. So I think that's always going to be the challenge, but I think that's the beauty of where we can, raise our brand value, get some more sponsors, or get, donors, winning helps. But I think it's just, that's the hard part is, we don't have the billionaire owners that can help support some of this. So a lot of these schools trying to find that money is really difficult.
Yeah. And so where does it leave the teams that are Power Five that maybe have a down year or two, or all the mid majors of the world? Where does that leave them, in your opinion?
I think you just really got to really hone in on what you can be successful at and maximize that. I mean, I think the days of like a G5 school trying to be competitive in a lot of sports is you're going to have to pick and choose what you really want to be competitive at. And that's up to each individual institution. I just think it's going to be really hard with those limited resources at different schools. And it's not just to the G5, it's all schools that, there's a finite amount of resources. You just have to maximize where you're going to place those to put your teams in the best success.
Have y'all done anything recent with like some sponsors, NIL deals that you're excited, like upcoming, or things you've done in the past year that's really like unique to Miami?
I'm trying to think because I'm new here. We've had some activations with Adidas, who's obviously our apparel partner, that they were able to do last year. Just being able to utilize our student athletes to do some different drops that they have, whether it be for Miami gear or just Adidas gear in general. Those have been pretty cool. We got a couple in the works. They can't speak on yet, but those will be pretty exciting. That'll be coming out this year that we're really excited and kind of working on how we're going to reveal that. But, we like utilizing our partners. They've been big supporters of us. And I think that's the best way to go because you're able to utilize your brand when they're a sponsor. So it kind of, raises the student athletes brand, the university's brand, and the sponsor's brand when you're able to do that.
Yeah. We were talking on our first call, the amount of people in the creative space of college athletics now compared to like 10 years ago. One, how many people does it take to do like, Miami's creative as opposed to other conferences or other teams, and kind of just like the evolution as a whole, because you've been in it long enough to see that evolution first.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for telling me I'm old, but no, it's really interesting. I remember being at Auburn, and we had like one or two video guys when I first started, and we had a photographer there when I started in 2009, so they were kind of ahead of the curve there. But now you kind of look, and when I was at Texas A&M, they had 12th Man Productions had about 10 or 11 full-timers, an army of students that would travel with us on the road. We built a photography department at A&M. Now they have 3 full-time photographers, I believe, in a studio that was built out. Louisiana, we hired a full-time photographer. We had 3 full-time creative video people. A couple other people that would help out with photo and video whenever needed to. But I think it's the investment that you need to make because social media is such a big platform. You never know when you're going to have those viral moments, but being able to capture the game, but also tell the story of the team and the program. You're able to do so much here at Miami. We have a team that's football specific, and then we have 3 full-time videographers for everybody else. We still shoot football, but I think it's just the investment that you make. You're able to capture those storytelling items and those big impactful moments and tell them in a creative way. I think you have to invest in that because again, you open yourself up to being able to put yourself out there to an unlimited audience, whether it be on Instagram, X, or Facebook now. I think if you're not investing in it, you're going to get left behind. And now, we've seen it with recruiting and all these other different things. Like, it's so important for that aspect of it too, that I think you're starting to see, if they already haven't, they're beginning to invest even more in the creative space.
Yeah. Transitioning into like more of the mindset, because college athletics it can be very brutal and it's not for everybody. What was your mindset, like you said, going into it, sending that first couple emails asking to get it, your foot in the door, and then how did your mindset change through each job and each all of the tough times, all the long days?
Yeah, I mean, when you first kind of get into it, you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to work this Auburn football game, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and you think it's exciting. And as a student, then you get to experience different things. I think, like, when I look back, being the men's tennis SID was more beneficial for me because I was more ingrained. I was learning more things because, to be honest, when you're working football as like a student, you're just another number or person. But being able to be ingrained and, you become one with the team in that aspect. And then now I think, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't times where I questioned why I got into athletics, but I think it goes back to being able to be around the student athletes and be a part of those big moments. I mean, there definitely are some tough times and you're working, 70, 80 hours a week when you're in season. But I think if you find a passion for it and you got to kind of pinch yourself and be like, damn, I get paid to sit courtside at this game, or I get paid to watch this game. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be some advice to, the kid that's 21 years old, just graduated college? Maybe he didn't, maybe he couldn't get his foot in the door as a student, intern, or whatever the case is. Where should he start out at? Or what's the path that you think he should take?
Yeah, I don't think it's really different. I think you got to make yourself available, reach out, talk to different people, find out what you're really interested in. You may think that you're interested in communications, but you find that you'd be better suited for marketing. I think internships, a lot of them, they probably don't pay the best, but you're going to have to take that risk to try to get in there. But I just think reaching out, making yourself available is the best way to become known. And if you know anybody, have them reach out. It's the connections piece. But, if you're willing and able to do the work, I can teach you how to do A, B, and C. But if you're not enthusiastic about the work, you're never going to work out. Like we always used to say at A&M, like you can't teach enthusiasm. So how are you going to be able to work? Like, what are you passionate about? But, if anybody's willing to put in the hard work, you're always going to find an opportunity.
What is, you got into the space and like you said, you questioned it a couple of times, but ultimately, obviously, you said, no, this is where I belong. What made you think that? Or like kind of like more so, what's your why? Why do you do it? Why do you continue to do it every single day?
Honestly, I think it's the student athletes. So it might be the cliche answer, but just being around them. They keep me young, getting older, but again, it's just being able to tell those stories and just being in that atmosphere of being like a part of the team. We're kind of maybe on the outside with the communication role, or even here, like you're not on the day-to-day, you're not in the team meetings all the time, but just being around them, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself, I think is always gratifying. And then just having those experiences, going to bowl games, doing trips with basketball where you're in a week in Las Vegas or Asheville, when we won that at Louisiana. Like, it's just those things that like, damn, this was really cool. Then you look back at it and it's the friendships that you made along the way. I can always pride myself if I could go to any SEC town with my time being in the SEC and I'll know somebody that I worked with and I could call up and we could go have dinner or something like that. Like I take pride in that. That's always the thing. Like you're in like this small, tight-knit community. But I think that's just the biggest thing is the people that you're around, the student athletes, the people that the full-timers, your coworkers, the coaches. It's really cool.
Yeah. Like you said, it is cliche, but like you said, it is the people. It's all everybody you get to know throughout the process. There's great people that work in, and you only get one life, so you might as well have a little fun while.
Yeah, correct. And it's like these student athletes, like there's a couple who go play FIFA with them online. It's just like you set fine line with me. They do become friends. There's people that former student athletes that I still talk to this day, and like they, I consider them friends, and it's just building those relationships, and you kind of help them along the way. But I think in a roundabout way, they help you too.
Yeah, for sure. What is your, end goal? Not necessarily end goal, but what's the next step for you? I know you just got the job at Miami, but obviously everybody has their own dreams and aspirations. What is that?
Yeah, I think if you had asked me on the day, I'd say I want to be an AD. And if you asked me the day after that, it would probably be, maybe like a senior executive, like a number 2 type. just with the different things that come with that AD role. I've never been one though that's like, all right, in 5 years I want to be here and I want to be doing this. I kind of just kind of bust my ass, stay where my feet are, and whatever happens, happens. I never thought I would have the opportunity to go to Texas A&M, and I spent 7 years there. Never did I think I was gonna say, all right, after 7 years I'm gonna go to Louisiana. This opportunity came to me, and I didn't think 2 years I want to go be in Miami, and it happened. So I just think you kind of in the back of your mind, or in the back of my mind, I've always had like, yeah, I want to keep moving up and keep doing these different things, but if you're looking ahead, you're not kind of being where you are and kind of focusing on the task at hand, I think, and just being able to be successful there. And then whatever happens after that, it's going to happen. I'm a big believer, and if it happens, it happens. But if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. So I just kind of try to be where my feet are.
With social media being such a big thing, it's essential in today's world. How do you navigate helping athletes with like what's good trends and what's trends that maybe they should avoid, kind of deal? Like, how do you help steer them and saying, hey, this is like positive and this will help you in the future, as opposed to like a quick, not, I don't know the exact word I'm looking for.
Yeah, but I mean, like, we always kind of joke that like, would your grandmother approve of this and like stuff like that. I think that's always the your social media is your brand, and you're not only representing yourself, you're representing your team, your teammates, and the institution that you're competing at. So I just think it's just being smart and being intentional with what you want to post, especially if you're really interested in the NIL piece. You want to have content that's on there that's attractive to brands. So it's just being smart with doing it. When I would give presentations to student athletes, I'd always say, like, your close friend story isn't private. If you're, somebody that I'm with is a close friend of yours and they see your story, I can take a picture of their phone, and it's, we've seen that numerous times where, you think it's on your close friend story, and then now it's all over Twitter and stuff like that. So it's just being smart, being intentional. You never know who's going to see it. But you really want to make stuff attractive. But from the NIL side of things, you really want to make it attractive to brands. And if you're not interested in it, make it attractive to your future employer. When I've hired people, I go through and I look to see, not necessarily stalking, but just kind of looking, seeing what they're posting about, and just different things like that. Like, people notice that type of stuff, and you are representing more than just yourself. So it's just being smart before you click post.
Yeah, absolutely. Helping student athletes, as an 18-year-old student, they might not be thinking about, after the 4 years after, but especially being at Miami, how critical is it that they can honestly change their life with working with donors and setting, just getting to meet people that they wouldn't meet with their position that they have?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to, you never know who you're going to meet, right? And I've heard stories about, after a loss, when a player goes and talks to a press conference, how they conduct themselves in there. It's not just social media. A business owner may see them and be like, damn, this guy or this student athlete really represented himself, where this is somebody that I could see, working for me, for my company. We all know student athletes have a very high work ethic with everything that's thrown at them. So they're always attractive future employees. But, it's just being mindful. Like, you always want to be yourself, but just, especially from the social side, just be smart. Like, we're never going to tell you how to act or do anything, but just think twice before you post it. It is something of that nature. But again, it just goes back to, you never know who's seeing it. You never know who knows who, or who could help you down the line.